Right, I am here with New Hampshire State Senator Jim Rubens, who is running for the U.S. Senate, primarying Kelly Ayotte. Senator Rubens, I got here a little bit late because of my interesting new schedule, but a nice presentation from what I saw here. People seem to be happy to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, well, I'm running because our country's in mortal danger. We're at the precipice. Americans are frustrated. They're angry. They're demoralized. And Washington is basically corrupt. It's bought and paid for, owned and operated by people who buy politicians, and it's got to change. Our country, our economy is not working for regular people. People are being squeezed. We need to have trade and immigration policies that are pro-America. We need to change our tax code and our regulatory apparatus so that small business can grow again. We need to fix our debt and our deficit. We're looking at $1 trillion per year of deficit. Each year, as far as the eye can see, my opponent, the incumbent, voted just in the last 20 months to add $1.5 trillion to this debt, broke her promise to be a fiscal conservative, and then went ahead and voted with the Democrats and Obama to bury us in debt. It's got to change.
One of the things you talked about during your presentation was the divide between conservatives and the incumbent, and basically the divide between promises made and promises delivered. And you've talked about positions that you had, and I was impressed in your presentation that you talked about, these are the things I believe, these are what I'm going to do. How important is it, especially in this election, that we have candidates who are going to deliver? If they say, I'm going to vote this way, this is what I'm going to do.
Right. You can make a promise as to how you're going to vote. That's hard enough. We also, and I've made promises about things I'd like to achieve, which requires getting other people to vote with you. That's a lot harder. But so I've made some promises about things I'm going to attempt to do, like get the budget balanced. But one of the things I will do is I will vote in order to get the budget balanced, because the country is going to go bankrupt. As I mentioned, our single greatest threat to U.S. national security is this debt that's burying us. We need to drag the president, big spending Republicans and Democrats, to the bargaining table, as Newt Gingrich and Republicans did in the 1990s, to balance the budget. I will vote to do that. I will attempt as much as I can to persuade other members of the U.S. Senate to get enough votes to force everyone to the bargaining table so we don't wind up with a fiscal and monetary Armageddon, and that's exactly where we're headed right now, under business as usual.
Now, New Hampshire's a swing state, and for a Republican to win, you have to get all of the Republican coalition. Last time around, Scott Brown had angered the pro-Second Amendment people, and they stayed, and the pro-life people, they stayed home, and it was the only Senate race that did not go the Republicans' way. You've talked about Senator Ayotte's record on both funding Planned Parenthood and on the Second Amendment. Right. Tell me what your positions are going to be on these issues.
Yeah, just summing up, Senator Ayotte promised to be a fiscal conservative, promised to be a constitutional conservative, promised to vote against amnesty and open borders. She broke all of those promises. She promised to vote against and oppose Planned Parenthood money. She voted to fund Planned Parenthood. What I promised to do is vote according to the Constitution, and I will vote against Planned Parenthood funding, even if it's part of a budget with other stuff in it. That's one promise that I'm making right here and right now. You're getting it documented right here. I will vote to protect the Second Amendment. Again, Senator Ayotte voted, she promised to be pro-Second Amendment, and as mentioned earlier in the speech, she voted to give Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, the power, without criteria, to put any persons in the country who have politically unpopular views or for any other reason on a no-gun list, taking away their rights granted under the Constitution for law-abiding citizens without due process. That's wrong. I would vigorously oppose any such action. As a matter of fact, I defend the Second Amendment as critical to defending our nation against enemies who are now acting on American soil to kill us. Those Second Amendment rights are specifically in our U.S. Constitution so that we can defend against enemies on our soil.
One of the biggest issues this year is law and order, and you alluded to the fact that most shootings have been mass shootings have been taking place in gun-free zones. I think you mentioned only 3 in the last 70 years took place in some place that was not a gun-free zone. And you talked about the culture, and what's interesting is a lot of the bigger cities where they're having issues with crime have been controlled by Democrats for literally for generations. You have to go back to before I was born to find a Republican mayor or governor. How important is the Republican culture of responsibility in order to promote law and order?
Our framers warned us way back at the beginning of our country that this republic that we have depends on us being a moral nation. Is that what you're referring to? That
well, in terms of the culture, yeah, that's basically
they go
it.
hand in hand. Again, the framers warned us very clearly. This form of government that we were given, this brilliant form of government given us, depends on us being a moral, self-restrained, self-responsible nation, and to live that way in our individual lives. And if we don't do that, we wind up fostering big government and totalitarianism.
Now, speaking of the rule of law, if you win the primary, how tightly do you plan on attaching your opponent in the general election to Hillary Clinton in terms of the obedience to law and so forth?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Maggie Hassan and Kelly Ayotte are remarkably similar in their positions, so there's not a lot of difference. So I'm campaigning against both of them at the same time. They're both statists. Maggie Hassan will be joined at the hip with the Democrats in the Senate if we wind up, God forbid, with Hillary Clinton. She will take orders. She will accept the barked orders from Hillary Clinton, no doubt about that. So that'll be easy to contrast.
Now, if people want to find out more about your campaign, in your issues, your contrasts with Senator Ayotte, and your issues in the general election, where can they go?
JimRubens.com. I should say something tactical. I don't know if you got this on camera.
Well, I haven't stopped recording, so go ahead.
Okay. I'm the underdog, okay? It's me against Ayotte in the primary. Here's something that's very different in this election cycle. A lot of the big Republican coalition money has not gone to the presidency this time for reasons that you might understand and have covered elsewhere. It's gone to protecting the Republican control of the U.S. Senate. A lot of the Democratic money has gone to getting Democratic control of the U.S. Senate. So there's this big war, not over which candidate wins the primary, but which party wins the primary. So there are tens of millions of dollars booked, available for the winner of this primary, me or Ayotte, it doesn't matter which, to defeat Maggie Hassan. There's ample sums of money to defeat Hassan. The advantage I have over Ayotte is that I'm welcoming conservatives into our party. I want the conservative coalition in our party, and as you point out, a Republican in this state cannot win a general election without conservatives. You mentioned Scott Brown. There's a classic example of a candidate, a Republican running to the center, abandoning Republican ideals, and losing the general election. So I'm holding conservatives. I'm holding on to and welcoming liberty Republicans, welcoming Trump voters who want jobs back in the country and good trade deals that are pro-America. I'm welcoming all these people into our party and making a big enough coalition so that not only is there the money sufficient to defeat Hassan, but we have a coalition big enough so we have more voters than the Democrats will have.
All right, Senator Rubens, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.